we have directly from beautiful Jamaica. I'm so excited about this next speaker, and I'm talking about Damani Brown, who is a leader of digital transformation. He is a strategic leader who seeks to optimize processes and realize cost savings while increasing efficiencies and delivering value to customers through digital transformation. He's committed to leading and transforming teams to deliver high quality services. So let me tell you a little bit more about Damani. He has worked and led organizations in government, aviation, financial services, and the largest electricity utility company in Jamaica. He's an expert on delivering value using technology and digital transformation. Damani, it's a real pleasure and honor to have you with us. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and expertise with our global audience today.
Thank you very much for having me as well, Jose, and good afternoon, everyone. It is fantastic to be here. I am very excited to be sharing with you this morning. I don't intend to be too long with you, so let's see if we can actually just run through this presentation as quickly as we possibly can. All right, so first things first, we are going to be talking about how we improve our operational accountability or organizational accountability and productivity. Okay, so first things first, my name is Damani Brown, and here we go. Here are some useful phrases that you might need to know throughout this presentation. All right, if you hear me saying wagwan, right, let me say that slowly again. Wagwan, it means hello, how are you doing? If you hear me say what good, it means I'm wishing you a safe travel and future success, right? So you have some nuggets to take home with you if you want to utilize some Jamaican phrases or slangs, or if you hear someone around you using some of these phrases, you'll have an idea what they mean. If you hear someone says, boy, you're salt. Salt means bad luck or something didn't go as planned. A word that we'll get a little familiar with as we go into today's presentation. All right, so here we go. We're going to be going through a case study today. We're going to be looking at a company called the Jamaica Public Service Company, where I was a digital transformation lead at JPS. This is the largest utility in Jamaica, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that as we go in. Then we're going to go into a bit of what the reporting environment was like and how we use RPA to actually improve the reporting environment within JPS, okay? And then we're going to take a look at the impact. What was the value that was delivered at the end? And we're going to walk you through all the steps. So here we go. Now, first things first, you're wondering, an elephant? Do they have elephants in Jamaica? No, we don't have elephants here in Jamaica. But I chose the elephant as the image that I would use on this particular slide because they say an elephant never forgets. It's filled with wisdom, and there is this sense of maturity and age and growth that comes across from an elephant. And I think everything about the elephant kind of encapsulates what JPS is. JPS is 98 years old, been in operation since 1923, and they're the single provider of electricity in Jamaica, right? Very big business. They have some 800,000 customers right across the island. So they do impact and serve a wide number of persons here in Jamaica. Okay, now the company has a very specific vision. They want to transform themselves into a modern, profitable, and agile energy business, right? I know you're saying, okay, how does an elephant become agile, right? Elephants are usually very slow. Elephants don't normally get up and start running unless something is really bad, right? Well, in this case, JPS decided that it needed to start running because things got really, really bad, okay? And we're going to be talking about how we use RPA to solve some of the people issues that came out of a very bad scenario. So first and foremost, here's where we are. The old JPS used to have a lot of employees were spending a lot of time on reporting activities, okay? The consistency of operational processes was not there. Things were not always streamlined. Some days persons did things well, other days they did them differently. Or someone might do something in one way in one part of the island, and then in another part of the island, we're doing a completely different process to deliver the same service. So there are a number of challenges and issues that were there. Oftentimes, senior management had challenges with being able to look in and say, hey, what actually caused the outage in this parish, or what is driving the increase in heat rate production in this parish? And it was very difficult for senior management to drill down at a moment's notice to actually figure this out. So they want to move from that sort of culture and that method of functioning and operating like an old elephant to a more agile elephant. And what does that look like? Well, cost of service is low because our internal processes are very good, very efficient. Employees spend more time on higher level tasks and not so much time on menial, repetitive tasks. And so the need for automation and the deployment of technological solutions is pivotal in order for us to achieve this. We want to be able to have better decision making capabilities available within the organization. So there are a number of different things, excuse me, that we needed to do in order to achieve this. And so we're going to get into a little bit of how we can go about moving from the old JPS to the new JPS. Now, here is a brief and recent history to give you some context as to what exactly is taking place. Now, in 2018, the board decides, hey, we need to make more money and our operating expenses are way too high. So what do we want to do? We want to increase our profits and we want to reduce our operating expenditure. But at the same time, we don't want to stop development. So the board says they want to continue pushing technology. They want to continue modernizing. And so they went forward with those initiatives. Now, as a spill-off from that, what happened in 2019 is we got those margins, but the staff morale took a hit, right? Productivity goes on decline. People don't feel appreciated. They don't feel valued. They feel overworked. Accountability becomes an issue. And then by 2020, the company decided, hey, we're going to introduce a new reporting mechanism in order to resolve some of these issues with productivity and accountability. But they're not doing it with the use of any form of technology. This is being done strictly from a policy perspective, where the company moves from reporting on a monthly basis and bi-weekly in some instances to a weekly reporting interval, and in some cases daily. Now, focus is placed in 2021 on changing the culture using digital transformation and agile methods. Okay, now that's the interesting year that we're going to look into. What happened in 2021? Were we able to actually increase productivity and accountability, or did everything remain the same? Let's take a look and see what happened in 2021. The problem was, as we were mentioning before, staff morale is low, but the company wants to push and introduce a data-driven decision-making process within the organization. Now, those two things don't go so well together. Change and unsettled or disgruntled employees is never a good mix. It's always a recipe for disaster. So we needed a quick way to get everyone on board. We needed a quick way to arm everyone with the right mindset. We needed something that made the technology not seem invasive or not seem as though it is coming to replace them or make things worse, but would actually be something that would be beneficial to them. So here it is. RPA was our solution, right? In the end, we decided that we needed to track some 340 metrics. And I know that sounds like a lot, and I'm going to explain how we got to that number in just a second, right? Now, what did we do to solve this problem? Well, we came up with the Digital Transformation Program. The Digital Transformation Program focused on three key project areas: data governance, which enabled us to look at how we were managing our data. What's the data that we have? Who is the owner for the data? How should this data be classified? We looked at all of that. We also looked at system rationalization. What are the pieces of technology that we have within the organization? How are they being used? Is there a duplication of technology? Is this the most cost-effective solution? How can we use the technology that we have to bring about the cultural change and the increase in productivity and accountability that the board desires? And finally, the third component of the project was, how is it that we go about digitizing our processes? Is it that we're stuck in a state where we're using manual processes all the time? Can we transition to something that is more digital, something that's more online, something that's more mobile? And that was what the digital transformation program was about. Now, all three of these programs needed to culminate into a central reporting framework and dashboard. We had dashboards in the past, but we had situations where we had inconsistencies in the dashboards. We weren't necessarily reaping the value that we wanted to get from the dashboards, and data accuracy was an issue. So we needed to fix all of that in this 1 year in the digital transformation program. Now, before we embarked on this initiative and we started out, well, we said, what is the major pain point for the people? What are people struggling with? What are they actually using their time to do? And we realized that persons spend a lot of time actually creating reports. So what we did was that we did a full analysis for every employee. We looked at all of the workload. So persons had to sit down and they listed out all the tasks that they do. And I'm sure you're familiar with something very similar to this. This here is actually an example that I use because I'm not authorized to share the actual data with you. But we were able to look at all of the employees, what they were doing, and we found that for the average full-time employee, they were working 45 hours per week in every 40-hour work week. No wonder people felt stressed. No wonder people did not feel appreciated. No wonder productivity went on a decline. We were reducing our operating expenditure, getting tighter on stuff from 2018 and 2019, but the staff, the people who were driving the company forward and driving the process forward, they were feeling overworked, and the results were there to prove it. Every week, each employee does more than 40 hours of work. So one major objective that we had was to try and bring it back into a range that is acceptable. Let's try and get it down to 40 over a 3-year period. So we are systematically trying to break down what we had created before that enabled persons to be working so many extra hours each day, right? Now, coming out of this analysis, we found that employees were using up to 30% of their time each week, up to 30% of their time each week to actually just work on reports. So we're talking about activities such as data gathering, data analysis, just creating the visualizations and presenting them. And they are not even yet in the meetings where they'll be presenting this data. So you see, there is so much time and effort that is placed into reporting related activities across the organization. And you may find that within your organization as well. If you do an analysis, you will realize that, hey, we're spending a little bit too much time on this activity. How can we look to enable or seek to enable our employees to maximize their time in a better way? How can we make work easier for them and at the same time provide some additional benefits to the organization? So when we looked at it, we realized that, hey, these three categories of employees, supervisors, managers, senior managers, those persons were the persons who are mostly affected. And then it dawned on us, if all the leaders in the company are spending at least a third of their time just dealing with reports and reporting, how can we get better decisions made that will actually lead to an increase in profitability or a reduction in our cost, right? How can we even move to somewhere where we're going to transfer these benefits to our customers? This was a problem that needed to be fixed and needed to be fixed quickly. So how did we go about solving this problem? Well, we tried to keep it simple. My general approach to things is I like to keep it simple. So this was the methodology that I used. It was very simple. The first thing was to establish a process inventory. So we went throughout the entire company and we did a full end-to-end check. Hey, what processes do you use? What do you do on a day-to-day basis when you come into work? What exactly do you do? And we broke down for every job role and function, every department, what are the key processes. We were able to narrow down our list because, as you can imagine, it would have been quite an extensive list of different things to run a utility that serves an entire country. And we kind of narrowed it down to 340 different processes. So after we had those 340 different processes, technically 344, a few were added added at the last end there. But when we had those processes, we had to sit down and do process mapping. That was the second step in the methodology. So we sat with all the executive leaders, all the managers, and we said, okay, for this process, what is the output that you want? What does this drive? Why does this number matter? What is the real number that you want to be looking at? Should you be looking at this number? So we went through all of that. We identified the data sources. We did all of that in that stage. Afterwards, we established what the outputs were. Should this be something that is going to be delivered as a PDF document? Is it just a graph? Is this an Excel sheet? Is this a flat file? Is this something that should be loaded inside of a data repository? Should it go into Dremio, for example? We looked at all of those things. Where is the data sitting? Where does the data come from? What does it do? And after that, we moved to the digitization of quantitative and qualitative data sources. So once we identified all the data sources, we had to sort and separate. Okay, for these quantitative data sources, we have 220 of them, and we have 120 qualitative data sources. That's a problem. We need to standardize if we're going to meet this 340 KPIs and process target. So we came up with a way to actually sort that out. And what we did was very simple. We looked for all our quantitative KPIs, which ones were coming from systems that we had access to the database already. So if we had direct access to the SQL database, we just plugged it into our data warehouse, pulled the data out from there, presented it in Power BI, did our manipulations there. But for the qualitative data sources and for some data sources that were not necessarily in a standard setting, this was problematic. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how we treated with that soon. And the final stage was that we needed to, of course, automate all the stages of the report generation process that we had previously described. And that is where RPA comes in to save the day. So remember, we were talking about the reporting environment. So there were three things that we observed in the reporting environment. The first thing was that there was low standardization across divisions. Reporting formats were not the same. So it it resulted in a situation where we were not speaking the same language all the time, which is problematic, of course. The second thing was the reporting lacked depth and insight. It was very difficult for C-level executives to drill down and do a root cause analysis as is required or as they so desire. So, for example, if they wanted to know what was driving losses in a particular parish in the country, it was difficult to get that information. They would have to leave the meeting and say to the manager, hey, I would like to find out what is causing this. And the manager would have to leave, go and do his research, get the stuff together, and come back in a week and say this is the result. Now we're moving from that old dinosaur, that old elephant, to the new agile elephant that can sprint. So we needed to be able to get results faster. The final problem that we realized in the reporting environment was that some of our applications had very poor reporting capabilities, or they had none at all. So this was due to the fact that several applications that were creating these new data points and acted as data sources were actually internally developed, and they only provided basic reporting capabilities. And we had a similar challenge with some of our vendors as well. So some vendors would actually email to us the various documents or reports that we would need for that particular application, and we wouldn't be able to have access to the panels. So we had quite a number of little messy pieces that we needed to standardize and kind of put together. Now, what did we do with RPA to actually eliminate that? Well, it was very simple. I broke it down into 3 steps. We came to the staff and we said to the team, hey, we want to make your work lighter. We realized that for a given week, you can spend up to about 12 to 15 hours just working on reports. We want to take that responsibility away from you and enable you to focus on some higher order tasks. We want you to be able to become an expert analyst. We want you to look and find solutions to the problems that we're having. So RPA allowed us to increase the available productive hours for employees by eliminating the time spent on data gathering, data processing, report compilation. Secondly, we were able to improve the quality of our data and our accuracy in our data as well. So there was no more guessing and spelling, no more numbers that just did not seem right. We were able to tell the truth immediately, and everyone was able to know the truth and see the truth at their fingertips. Finally, we used RPA to increase the reporting frequency. So no longer did we need for any manager to leave a meeting and come back 1 week later. No, we could actually now say, hey, I can tell you this answer right now. And we decreased the reporting interval for all of the reports from monthly to weekly and daily. So we have most of the reports being run on a daily basis and being generated by a daily basis, and RPA handles all of that. Now inside of JPS, how RPA works is very simple. We build out on the Microsoft O365 stack, and we took 2 bots. So that's 2 Power Automate licenses with the Power Automate unattended add-on available as an option on this. And we use 1 bot for testing, we use the other one for production. Now, the 1 bot that is in production handles approximately 120 different KPIs. Remember earlier I said that we identified 340 processes, and some of them were qualitative, some were quantitative. Well, the bulk of them that were qualitative were these 120 KPIs. Either they were qualitative or they came from some ad hoc system that we didn't have direct access to the database. So there were 120 different pieces of information that we needed to assimilate. We needed to automate all of the steps in these 120 different processes. So we did that by creating the jobs, and we scheduled them based on their system classification, the reporting frequency, and the time at which the reports will be needed. So say, for example, a report would be needed in the morning, then you know that the job would have to be scheduled to be run from in the from the night. So that's what we kind of did there to ensure that we were delivering all our reports on time, that the bots were actually doing the calculations when they should be doing it, because everything ran on a schedule, and we had someone there to check and monitor both the production and the dev environment. Okay. Now, the bot also was able to maintain historical uptime statistics. Now, this is actually a very important thing for us as a company, because for some systems, we were actually tracking for some of them manually. Most of the critical systems we could tell from a from a from the server side, we could tell the availability and the uptime of the server. We could look at it from that way, but we couldn't tell when there were service disruptions that only the user is experiencing. We could only tell that by doing manual checks. So we didn't have the tech in place to actually support the level of accuracy that was required. Now, using RPA, we can actually tell all of these things at a moment's notice, because we have a bot that is periodically checking for uptime all the time. Finally, RPA helped us to eliminate all the manual user interventions in the reporting pipeline. So it's a very simple 4-step process. It logs into the application or the email, it does the configurations, downloads whatever reports or information that is needed, it does some normalization of the data, and pushes it over into the data repository in Dremio. And we then took those data sets, published them in Power BI, created the visualizations, and centralized it on SharePoint. This way, everybody has access, or the relevant persons who need to have access to particular pieces of information, they have access to those pieces of information. We were also able to use RPA to gather so much data that we could drill down up to 4 levels. Before, we couldn't drill down any at all, but because of the frequency with which we were gathering data and the multiplicity of data points, we were now able to drill down and do better root cause analysis. And all of this was put in place in 2021, and we were building it on the Power Platform, using Power BI for our business analytics. We use Power Automate for automation, and we use Power Apps whenever we needed to develop any application to support or feed data to our Power Automate flows. Now, what RPA technology has done overall is to lift the burden off the shoulders of the team, and it allows them to have more time to focus on solutions rather than on checking boxes. Now, what does that look like at the end of the day? After we have done all of this, all the sorting, all the data normalization, all the data governance, everything that we put in place, all of the automation and the flows and the tech stack, what was the end result? This was the end result. Our leaders are now able to do drill downs 4 levels deep, and that could be now done in real time. Report creation was reduced from an average to 12 hours that we spoke about to an average about 30 minutes per week. Team members were able to gain at least 2 extra hours each day, enabling their productivity. Managers became more proactive because now there was a greater requirement for accuracy and accountability. So they raised the standards of accountability within their teams automatically, because the reporting frequency and finally we were able to actually create a scenario where we could reduce our FTEs. And this is ultimately one of the major benefits that can come out of utilization of technology such as RPA. With the elimination of redundant processes and activities, we can move forward and say, all right, we don't necessarily need persons in this area anymore. We can move them to somewhere else, or we may have to consider other means of separation because we don't have a need for that anymore. We were also able to implement policies to support the use of all of these dashboards and the reports that were coming out at the end. And this was actually a very critical move because it actually set the tone for the culture change that took place. Now that the requirements are being run from end to end in the organization, from CEO to entry level employee, everyone has to use the same reporting format. They have to use the same technology. They have to use the same dashboards. And that allowed us to create a culture of high productivity and high accountability automatically. And it also helped to make people feel a whole lot better about what it is what we're doing. Now, I believe it was Bill Gates that said, the advance of technology is based on making it fit in such a way that you don't really even notice it. So it's a part of everyday life. And that's pretty much what we did with the JPS scenario. We made the entire reporting ecosystem become a part of everyday life for everyone. Accountability automatically increases because it's built in to how we work. Productivity automatically increases because it's built into how we work. Plus, we are now able to get real-time accurate insights about all of our data. So we know exactly what's happening right across the organization. And with that said, I would like to close here. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask and join in the discussion at this time.
Damani, that's fantastic presentation. Thank you so much for sharing that journey with all of us here. And we have questions from the audience that I'm gonna get to, and I'm gonna start with a hint here. So let me see if I get this right. I'm supposed to say, "We ya de wid." Was that close enough?
It's close enough.
Very good.
It's
So
close
listen,
enough.
I have some partners here online that are like telling me, give me these gifts and say, talk to him about this. I have someone who has worked for you directly right there in Jamaica who is with us. So I know it's really great to have this connection in this community. So again, thank you for sharing this. You know, I must say, when you first showed the picture of the elephant, I thought, oh, okay, he's in this big organization, nearly 100 years old. He's going to be talking about how do you eat an elephant. And you kind of did, because it's one bite at a time, right? Especially an
Right.
organization that large. And you have shown some great perspectives here on what it takes to move a big ship. And in that case, you know, the elephant. Now, tell us a little bit some of the questions and the commentary as you're speaking, very complimentary about the journey and your openness and transparency about the challenges. Let me ask you this: if you'd go back on this journey of transformation that you went through with RPA, any because there are a lot of people in this call who are in large organizations that are very similar to what you described. As a matter of fact, even my own personal experience, for more than a decade, I led excellence and innovation for Black & Veatch, which is an energy company, engineering constructions. We build power plants around the world, right? We including projects in Jamaica. And it's over 100 years old, same culture, 14,000 very smart engineers. And then you have an idea there, and there are 13,999 other people who have a different idea. So it's a challenging environment because you have really good, smart people who are trying to do the right things, and they have maybe different opinions about what the right thing may be. How did you, if you go back in your own implementation, and if you would adjust a few things, what would you pay more attention to? And this is again advice for people who are starting on trying to move their big ships. What would you pay attention to that maybe it wasn't so obvious when you first started doing this?
Definitely, it would be the details around the tech. We spent a lot of time actually deliberating on what tech stack to use. And when we decided on using Microsoft Power Automate, we didn't do enough deep dive into the specifications of what that would require. So in terms of the licensing, the type of licensing, what are you authorized to use, and how does that fit into your entire ecosystem, and how will that work? Where will it run? Those were some of the things that posed big questions for us that we had to stop and take a moment and look at. Additionally, from the tech side as well, uh, the establishment of a data warehouse. If I could go back, I would actually invest more time in trying to build a data warehouse out rather than trying to find a solution to deliver the quick results that we got. So I would actually invest more time in building out that data warehouse and getting that up to scratch. I think that would have actually made everything a whole lot easier. But then we wouldn't have gotten to use RPA. So
That's right. That's right. So those are very, very, very helpful insights. It seems to me other people have picked up on this as well in your presentation. Is that you have done a really remarkable good job at implementing RPA and intelligent automation in areas that truly create value for professionals. That they go from many hours that they're spending on reporting to just a few minutes, and then there is that valuable time. I have two questions related to that. One is that um, sometimes that there's a pressure from senior leaders that, oh, we free up all this time, so we must be able to reduce the number of professionals working on this now, right? Others will say, well, no, we can't reduce the number of professionals. We're gonna redirect this labor to go do something else more productive. And I think that that's the path that you took. But I want to understand the pressures that you feel as a leader when you start creating this kind of value. It's like, well, it's not a real value until these people are not doing this job anymore. So how do you deal with that, with this redirected labor question and sometimes pressure that you have? And then after you answer that, I have another question to follow up on that.
sure, no problem. I can thank you for the question, Jose. Definitely, it is always very challenging when you have to be the person who is going to implement something that could potentially lead to people losing their jobs. It's not a nice feeling. It's not a light crown to wear, but it is something that can be managed. That you have to consider to yourself that the truth is you are trying to position not only the company, but the individual to be the most productive and best person that they can be. And that's what technology really does. Technology isn't meant to replace people. It's actually meant to enhance the things that we do. And the communication around that is very important internally. You have to ensure that you're talking with the people, continuously explaining to them what we are doing, what does it mean for them, to try and alleviate some of the fears, and upper level management will ultimately make the decisions that they want to make surrounding that. The good thing is that we did an analysis before we began everything. So we could easily go to the table and say, hey, everyone is already overworked. The team is maxed out. So even if we reduce the number of hours, they're still going to be overworked. So you can't cut anyone as yet. So that was a very good thing in our scenario, doing that analysis of what each employee's workload is critical before you begin this entire exercise, or you will have gung-ho executives who might just say, chop everybody. And that's not necessarily the solution that we need.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, the next question related to this has to do with culture. And I want to go back. Before you presenting, we had a great presentation from Chris Hodges, and he talked about noble automation. And one of the quotes that he had there, which is a very well known, is about digital transformation, is that more than 70% of all digital transformations fail. I would actually say that the number is greater than that. I think that number is very, very uh, conservative. I think it's more like 80 to 90%. And it depends on how you classify the failure and so on and so forth. But in any case, a high percentage of digital transformations fail. And I would say that, you know, I have had the privilege to lead a lot of award shows throughout the years. And just last year in December, we had the 2021 Digital Transformation Awards. And it's like thousands of organizations who think they got it, but the reality, there's just like a handful that get to the stage. Because
Yeah.
when you look at the details, it's like, yeah, it's a nice project. There's no digital transformation. So this is a nice project, and most of them don't even get the outcomes that they wanted. So, and these are the people who think they're award winners. Okay, so there's a very small set that's up there, and on that small set, what we have noticed is that on those digital transformation winners, without an exception, there was no successful digital transformation without a business transformation and without a cultural transformation. That's the
Definitely.
only common denominator I see among the true winners. So my question to you is, you look to me on this deployment as a potential true winner. So I have to ask the question, was there a cultural transformation? And what does that look like for an organization like that when you're implementing digital transformation? What was the cultural transformation that really took place?
Okay, thank you for that question, Jose. Yes, there was some cultural transformation that started to take place in 2021, but I'm very confident that we will see more of that actually manifest in 2022. So the major shift was, let me phrase it this way. Sometimes in organizations, especially as large as ours, that provides persons with the sort of job stability that we can provide. What you might find happening is that persons kind of do the bare minimum. They've been here a long time. They know the ropes. They know all the tricks to the trade, so they can do something in 5 minutes. They're not trying to maximize their time. So that was sort of the culture. When we changed the reporting frequency and we took the responsibility of gathering the numbers from the people and put it in the hands of a machine, immediately everybody comes to life because now they can't hide behind the excuse of saying, well, I had this to do, or I had that to do, or I was working on this report. They can't say that anymore. So you eliminate all of the excuses automatically by the implementation. But to make the cultural change effective, everything is around the messaging and the consistency of the messaging and the communication that you have with the people. Oftentimes, as technology professionals, we don't pay enough attention to the people side because there are three components that you need in any technology project. It's the process, the people, and the technology. We're oftentimes only focused on the technology and sometimes on the process. We don't look on the people. So we had to make the entire initiative be around the people. And what the plan is at the moment, which is already underway, is that for this year, we're not trying to introduce anything new. We're just building on what we did last year, which is a very important piece of strategic information to have. After you go through a major implementation of any piece of technology in the organization, it is best, if you want the culture to come with you, it is best for you to settle down, stabilize the ship. You need to upskill everyone, start training. That was something that we did a lot of. We did a lot of upskilling. We selected specific persons from different divisions to be our champion and that sort of thing. We included the people in everything. So when we sat down to meet with persons, we asked them, we didn't come to them and say, give me the KPIs that you report on. We came to them and we said, what are the things that are bothering you? What are the things that provide a challenge for you on a day-to-day basis? Give them to me. I will take care of them for you. And that's what we did that. And so culturally, everyone starts to move more frequently. Everyone becomes more productive. Everyone, most importantly, increases their knowledge and awareness of digital technology and utilize it more. In fact, I'll just end this point with saying this. I can tell you that for the Microsoft stack, we increased our utilization from 74% across the organization to 91%. So a big shift. Everybody got involved because we included the people.
I couldn't think of a best way of finishing our time together here and really finishing this 3-day conference with the statement that you have just made. And the demonstration of the cultural transformation that typically accompanies meaningful business and digital transformations. So on behalf of our global community, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and expertise on this journey. I hope that we connect later in the years to come to find out more about how this cultural, business, and digital transformation for value creation is progressing at the organization and with your leadership. So thank you so much again for sharing that with all of us today.
Thank you as well. You're most welcome, and do be safe and have yourself a good day or walk good.
Well, good. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Damani Brown there, directly from Jamaica, sharing with us his journey of cultural, business, and digital transformation. So very well, this brings us to the end of our 3-day event. I want to thank every one of you for being here with us, for engaging in these discussions, for supporting and praising our speakers for the great insights that they're sharing with us. You have done this through so many different ways, through the engagement here, through the LinkedIn posts that we have, where you provide feedback and praise to our speakers for sharing their incredible industry experiences with all of us. You can continue to do that. I'm going to do a quick update on the LinkedIn today after I'm done here, and a bit of a recap of what happened today. So make sure that you like and share and comment, with those speakers about their participation here. These are very busy industry leaders who are very generous with their time, which is their most important asset, and with us to share their expertise and wisdom. So I want to thank them. I want to thank our sponsors for Nintex and Blueprint for making this all possible and accessible to all of us globally at no cost. Remember, you're going to be receiving an email with the email that you used to register for this conference with a link and password to access all of the sessions at your own leisure. Join us with more than 850 members on the online community that we have for business transformation, operational excellence. And join us in our next conference. Our next conference will be a 3-day conference, March 1st through 3rd, on focus on supply chain planning. So supply chain, as you know, is having great challenges around the world. Lots of different important things happening on supply chain, and supply chain planning live. It will be available to all of us with the best supply chain leaders from around the world speaking directly with us, March 1st through 3rd. Make sure you register for that, because your registration does not carry over from one conference to the other. So you must register independently to that conference. And again, it will be at no cost to you, because we have this amazing sponsors who allow us to do that. So last thanks to Brian Raffel, our conference director, for making sure that this all works seamless for all of us. There's a lot of work in technology and organization coordination with industry leaders that Brian does masterfully. Thanks also to Vijay Bajaj, the CEO of Proqis Digital, who leads these conferences and the industry for business transformation, operational excellence. And again, one last time, our sponsors, Nintex and Blueprint, for making it all available to our global audience. So whatever you are in the world, have a great rest of your day, morning, afternoon, or evening. Have a great rest of your week, and I hope to see you back here with Supply Chain Live in March 1st through March 3rd. So bye-bye for now. Have a great rest of your day.